Where do women go when abortion is made illegal in your state? Hey, Pro-Life Jen, I'm Kristan Hawkins. Welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. Even before Roe versus Wade was reversed in June of 2022, Texas was way ahead of the game with their novel civil enforcement law that prohibited abortions after a fetal heartbeat was detected, and then with a new trigger law that essentially made abortions illegal throughout the entire Lone Star State. But where do women go? What's the state of the pro-life movement and the supportive services and the nonviolent resources in the state of Texas since that day? That's the question we're going to uncover today. My guests today are Aaron and Holly Snell, who serve together as the chief executive officers of Hope Women's Center, which is a pregnancy medical clinic in McKinney, Texas, which serves most of North Texas, just north of Dallas. Aaron was a full-time pastor for over 20 years before the Lord began to confront his apathy as a church leader on the issue of abortion and sanctity of life. So he obviously has a very strong mission with Hope Center. Holly is the co-author of Dancing on My Ashes with her sister Heather. Following a tragic accident in 2000 that claimed the lives of her first husband and her brother-in-law, Holly now ministers and speaks all over the country to those who are in crisis and those who are grieving. It's the story of loss that actually propelled her into the pro-life movement 7 years ago. So together, Aaron and Holly are church and conference speakers. The Lord is using them in a mighty way to really stand for life and to serve women and children in North Texas. I was so incredibly honored to actually visit their brand new facility last spring when the Hawkins family road trip was passing through Texas. And I've had them on my mind for months we have to introduce you to the work of Hope Women's Medical Center. So Holly and Aaron, thanks for joining us today.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Honored to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met co-executive directors or co-CEOs. Do you guys ever have any fights over who's the top CEO?
Never, of course. Never.
It's always me.
And we all know, we all know it's Holly.
Right.
We all know
that's true.
The woman's always the one's ultimately in charge. I'm just saying. I was saying, well, that would make an interesting challenge if you disagreed with something at work and you guys were both each other's equal. Yeah. Some interesting resolutions there, but you guys make an incredible team, and it really shows, especially looking at just the growth of Hope Women's Center and this incredible brand new building that you guys, 2 buildings that you showed me when I was there,
right?
And all of the innovative resources that you all are offering. So tell me a little bit about what does Hope Women's Center provide, and how is it a little bit more unique than maybe what most folks think is a traditional pregnancy center?
Sure. Well, historically, in our 17 years of history, we were your average pregnancy first resource center, moved to being medical in 2011, where we were providing pregnancy tests, ultrasound, STD and I testing, and treatment. But we really we went through a lot in just several years ago, February of 21, and where we lost everything in a big storm that Texas had. But it was through that storm and truly losing absolutely everything from our buildings, every sono machine, every patient file, piece of furniture. We literally lost everything, but truly it really changed and began the transformation of this ministry. So now we have 2 buildings. We've doubled our square footage of space. And as we were really in this weird transition of what we were supposed to do, we began to pray and just say, what is really the best way we can serve this community? Because now we had 2 buildings. And so we added a full adoption agency on site full time, as well as a Christian counseling center that has 9 licensed Christian counselors on site to see our patients that have just extra needs that we can't just immediately fill. And so really, it's really become kind of a holistic way of reaching the abortion-minded and determined woman to meet her needs. Of course, we have a training center, all kinds of different classes for those who've experienced sexual trauma, rape, incest. We have post-abortion classes for women, but also now we offer post-abortion classes for men. And we've got a baby boutique and all of the kind of normal things, but really it's the holistic approach. And then since Roe v. Wade being overturned, of course, we really had to begin to look at just the pregnancy center movement in general and begin to ask some really hard questions. Because in some ways, Aaron would often, I hear him say, some ways things didn't change at all. In other ways, it changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the crises we were facing in our area is fewer and fewer doctors were accepting Medicaid. And so we were finding whenever the girl would make the brave choice for life, we literally had nowhere to send her. And so moving into this year, we began hiring mid-level providers where we now have nurse practitioners and physician assistants on staff, where we have moved into prenatal services. So whenever they do make the choice for life, we can keep her throughout her pregnancy and continue to serve her medically, continue to also just build a relationship with her and her family, hopefully her boyfriend, the male influencer, and serve them throughout. And then also, we are moving into post-abortion medical assessments and medical care. So for those who go across state lines and have surgical abortions, or for those in our community who order the pills online and have a chemical abortion at home, we are providing services for them to come in and to get follow-up medical care that is so needed.
Yes.
So that we can begin immediately treating them medically, but also emotionally and spiritually begin to just wrap our arms around them and let them know it's going to be okay, and we're going to walk this journey with them.
That's remarkable. I mean, that's something that I think that's very unique to Texas because, the abortion facilities are shut down or should be shut down, but we all know that abortions are still happening in Texas because of proliferation of these dangerous chemical abortion pills. And, PlanC.org, I mean, the Biden's DOJ even came out and said, "Oh, you won't be criminally punished, male workers, if you're distributing pills illegally throughout states like Texas that preventing all abortions." And I think there's, obviously there's a lot of concern about. We know these pills are 4 times more dangerous than a surgical abortion, 10 times more deadly, but yet she's taking them and doesn't even have a doctor. I mean, the whole abortion is between a woman or a doctor adage is no longer even a thing. Have you started to see calls from women taking chemical abortion pills in crisis?
We're receiving a ton of calls weekly for sure, from girls who have taken the abortion pill at home, and they are truly now immediately being traumatized by what they're experiencing because they now have not sat with anyone to hear of what they're getting ready to experience. So when they do experience just the things that they're encountering when they are having their abortions at home, they're not ready for it. They are surprised by the pain. They're surprised by the amount of blood. There's just all kinds of complications that we're starting to see, and we're getting calls daily regarding those things. But in addition to that, girls now who have even crossed state lines, they've gone and had abortions, and now they're coming back to us because they're feeling like they may have some real issues. And so they're coming back into us because they're not going to go back across state lines to see the doctor that provided the abortion. So they're coming to us. We're finding all kinds of women with infection. We're finding that even just this week, we had a patient who walked in and we discovered that in her abortion procedure, that the doctors put an IUD in, which then caused all kinds of infection in her body. And now there's a likelihood of her not ever being able to have children moving forward. This is a 17-year-old young woman who now may have been robbed of having children down the road. And so the things that we are encountering, the things that we're dealing with.
Did the abortionist even ask her if she wanted an IUD?
I wasn't in her actual appointment, so I didn't ask that question to get that response. I just know that she was surprised of what she was experiencing.
I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't even know he inserted
Well,
an
and
IUD
she said that she didn't even know, though, that technically those aren't supposed to be placed inside a
Yeah.
woman until 6 months after an abortion. So the fact that this was done during an abortion procedure, which then complicated infection all throughout her body, and now we're the ones trying to treat her, care for her, and it's going to take multiple appointments to get her where she needs to be. But we wouldn't be able to do any of that if we didn't have a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant on site where we could prescribe and have our Class D pharmacy to be able to give them the medication that they need and ongoing care just to make sure they're okay. So, in long answer to your short question, we are encountering so many phone calls, so many girls who are walking through our doors truly just dumbfounded and not knowing if they're okay.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, we consider it an honor to serve them and to love them well and to meet them in this crisis.
I just thank God you all are there, serving these women, but I can't help but think about all the other women that don't have a Hope Women's Center near them. And where are they going? Where are all these other girls going?
Right.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, you guys do incredible work. You're seeing thousands of patients in North Texas, which is, super populated north of Dallas. But, I mean, what are the girls in Houston? Where are they going?
Yeah.
Where are the girls in San Antonio? I mean, oh my gosh. That's just, it's heartbreaking to think. And it's like everything that you all just described is a complete contradiction to the lies that the abortion lobby, continues to wage about pro-lifers and the pregnancy care movement, that you guys are offering medical treatment and assessments following an abortion because you're just trying to make sure she doesn't become septic, doesn't have an infection that can render her infertile. And you're providing immediate, non-judgmental care to the mess that the profiteering abortionists have made.
That's right.
And
we
it's
want to
free. It's completely free.
We want to wrap our arms around them immediately and just to let them know it's okay. It's going to be okay. We love you. We're going to walk this journey with you, and just to bring encouragement into their life. So,
and I think the chemical abortion point is so valid too, because I mean, even the Washington Post, Carolyn Ketchner had a really enlightening piece in the Post at the end of October where she talked about, she kind of embedded with a Mexican midwife who was corresponding via email with all these Americans who wanted chemical abortion drugs. We all know if they're, sex abusers or women, young women. We don't know anything story, but they're corresponding with someone who doesn't speak English, who's mailing chemical abortion pills and little tiny bags of acid to the woman or to the post office, whoever's ordering it. So then, but at least this midwife was telling women, hey, heads up, you may, see your child and it may look like a baby. But the women mostly throughout the United States aren't even being prepared for what they're going to see if they search through the toilet or in the bathtub and look at what
it's so traumatizing. And that's why a lot of clinics like ours, they are seeing women come in with that baby. They're pulling the baby out of the toilet and putting the baby in a shoebox and coming in saying, what do I do with this? Because they're so traumatized. Nobody's preparing them. Nobody's telling them the truth of what they're going to experience and what they're going to see. And so again, that's another reason that is just driving us to post-abortion medical care. Obviously, we want to catch them before an abortion. We want to love them and encourage them before not to do that. We want to tell them the truth of what they're considering. But if they do, we want to be right there to love them and to walk this journey with them.
And from the practical standpoint too, if you look at the recidivism rate, a woman who has one abortion is, so much more likely to have a second abortion. So reaching out to her and helping her heal from the abortion, you're going to be preventing future abortions as well. Because we always talk about the pro-life movement that the abortion doesn't actually solve the problem that she thinks it's going to solve. And so if she finds herself unexpectedly pregnant again, she's going to be right back to the abortion clinic. But if we can intervene there and step in and ask her, what are your goals? Where do you want to see yourself? Where do you want to be? And hey, by the way, abortion isn't going to get you there. You are saving lives by ministering to these women who are, completely being left alone. I mean, I hope you all, and I don't know the way to do it in a HIPAA compliant way, but to find a way to tell these women's stories, because this needs to be told. I mean, we're at Suicide, we've been talking a lot about the environmental effects of this is chemical abortion tour going on in campuses, and we're doing these what is in the water drink challenges on campuses, and really trying to get young people who may be okay with abortion intellectually to think about what's in their water, and that women are aborting these human beings that have chemically tainted blood tissue because of the active metabolites that pass through a woman that remain active, and when they hit our waterways, how it's
Right.
affecting all of
Right.
us. I know. I hope
Yeah.
you're telling the story because it's we've seen in the pro-life movement legislative attempts to do humane burials of children, or we just had a law introduced in West Virginia, and I think Idaho is the second state to do it, and we just call it the medical waste bill, where it says even though abortions aren't legal in these states, if you're taking these drugs, you have, the purveyor of medical waste, the generator of medical waste, the abortionist has to at least tell you what's going to come out of you, and has to have a way to catch these human beings and chemically tainted blood tissue. So it doesn't, but then it's like, how do you, I actually think those laws, while they don't ban abortion, will actually be very effective in making women stop and think, because if you're going and getting a pill, and the doctor says, oh, by the way, you have to put this strainer over your toilet to catch the remains of your child, I think a lot of women are going to think twice that it's not just some random blob of tissue. That's it's horrifying. That's just horrifying.
Thank you for talking about this the way that you do, and you are really out front in this movement, and we're really appreciative of that, because in a state like Texas, and we love the great state of Texas, but it's really easy for Christians in the body of Christ, once Roe is overturned, to just sit back and kind of clap our hands and go, praise God, the battle's over, we won. And they have no idea about all the things that you are talking about. And so that's why we are constantly out in our community, raising the flag, trying to tell them there is a war like never before. There's an assault on life in our country. And so we're constantly trying to educate and inform, but it's a very uphill battle.
It is. I mean, you all know this. You're raising funds for Hope. I'm raising funds for Students Life Action. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people of this sense of relief that Roe's been reversed. And I'm like, this is what we've been predicting, that this is the battle's only heating up. It's larger than it ever was before. Now is time to throw everything we have into this fight. And I think I'm so glad that you guys are so connected with the Christian community there, of really trying to reach into these churches and to keep Christians engaged in this battle, because we'll lose. I mean, I saw it this year at the March for Life, where these young kids would come up to me, oh, I loved the Pro-Life Summit. It was amazing. I'm going to go back. I want to start a pregnancy center as soon as I graduate school. But then I would say, oh, I'll see you next year. And the student would say, oh, well, my bishop said we're not coming back next year since Roe's reversed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have whole dioceses that used to send 50 to 80 buses of kids to the March for Life, some come to the summit, that they maybe they didn't get all the training they needed. That's been my criticism of, don't just go send kids to DC, you gotta get them trained. But at least they would have that imprint of knowing in their mind that abortion is wrong, they're part of the majority, and that they needed to still stand up. And the effect of churches and dioceses across the country saying, we're not sending people to the March for Life anymore, it's going to be devastating for our movement. And I don't think folks have thought about that
about
way.
6 or 8 weeks ago, there was an article written that said that in the state of Texas, since Roe is overturned, abortion is down 99%. And so the week that article was released, Holly and I were speaking at 2 churches that weekend. And when those churches were introducing us, two of those churches, they referenced that article, that abortion was down 99%. And so people are cheering. And we literally had to get up and say, hold your applause. We praise God that Roe is overturned, the greatest horrific human injustice in our lifetime. However, the 99% it's talking about is just surgical abortion. And so we had to then begin to talk about chemical abortion and man, people were they were blown away. It's stuff that they've never heard. And so it's so important that they understand that this is happening in every community in our country.
Yeah, and now it's going to be in your local pharmacy, which
Right.
even lends more confusion because you have a question of, well, that's Plan B. And so I was at a conference a
Exactly.
couple of weeks ago with Catholic business leaders, and like, I mean, I'm like the least dignified person to sit next to a bakery. So I'm like, no. This is how Plan B works. Plan B is supposed to stop ovulation. It can't cause an abortion, but that's not the intention. The intention is to stop ovulation so conception occur. But let me tell you about chemical abortion drugs, RU46, and at your pharmacy. And people was like, oh my gosh, she's going into it at the dinner
Right.
table. But that was
Exactly.
me. But I was astounded because these are Catholic business leaders who are involved. They go to weekly, daily mass. They're involved in the fight and had no idea what I was talking about, that our local pharmacies, not in Texas, thankfully, but in most states across the country are now, where I'm at in Florida, are now abortion facilities. I mean,
Right. Right.
it's unbelievable. What do you think, I guess, how can we take your model? I have to be careful what I'm saying here, but how can we take your model and replicate it and bring it to other cities across the country? Are you meeting with other pregnancy centers? Have you guys started kind of writing, I don't know, like white papers or doing little videos about testimonials? Because I think that's what you all have described is where we need to go in the pro-life movement. And I think every pro-life advocate who's listening would agree with that. But then it's like, how do you take what you're doing there at Hope and how do we translate that? And what can pro-life grassroots, young people and supporters, how can they take what you're doing and spread it so we challenge other pregnancy centers across the country to move in a similar way?
We are meeting with other national pro-life organizations who help lead other pregnancy resource centers and medical clinics across the country, and they are asking those questions. We definitely haven't figured everything out, but you just honestly, it's like, what are the needs and how do we fill them? And that's really kind of, we remain open-handed with with our services, just really wanting to be led by the need, but also still making sure that our bullseye is reaching the abortion minded and determined woman. But we are starting to have those conversations. We haven't written any white papers. I feel like we're still so new into this. We definitely don't feel like experts, but I will tell you, I don't think I've ever.
You never will feel like the expert. I
Yeah,
don't feel like the expert. People say complimentary things to me. I'm like, I have no idea. I just keep trying.
yeah,
I don't know. I think it would be a really great, I don't know, if I can encourage you in any way, it would be find a way to document what you guys are doing. And as you guys are walking through setting up this, post-abortion medical services, even, or the chemical abortion, like if you're able to find a way to document this on social media or, obviously in
yeah,
HIPAA compliant,
yes,
not,
of course.
divulging any personal information, but I think that would be really motivational for future pro-life pregnancy center directors. I mean, I know the pro-life generation, when you ask young students for life leaders, what it is that they want to do when they graduate school, how do they want to serve in this movement? It is what you are doing. But we need to inspire them to say, hey, if you begin volunteering or working for this center, challenge your centers, challenge the board of directors.
Right.
To upgrade the services and to go medical and to provide these types of resources and services first.
This is a pivotal moment in the pregnancy medical clinic movement, where years ago, pregnancy medical clinics were maybe more like resource centers, where they were giving out diapers and just pregnancy tests. And then there was a moment where they switched to medical, where they began to offer ultrasounds and more services. And I think this is another one of those moments in just the overall movement of the pregnancy medical clinics, where for 50 years we've said we're pro-life, and now it's an opportunity to show exactly how pro-life we really are. And so that's why it is a pivotal moment to begin to look at all the services that we have and to really have Holy Spirit eyes to see the community and to see the needs and to make some really necessary adjustments.
Because while we're always for the preborn child, we are also for that young mom that young dad and really trying to help resource them, encourage them, love them well, as they make decisions in their journey. But we are grateful, and it really is the greatest honor of our lives to really serve the community in this way, to really those who are struggling, those who are hurting, those who have little resources. We have this incredible opportunity to come alongside them and point them to life. And it's the joy of our lives. It really is.
Yeah.
That's so exciting I mean, it's just this whole podcast has been really a privilege for me to listen to all that you guys are doing, and the incredible witness you have and the courage that you all have. I mean, I guess you don't know this if you work for a pro-life group, but to have two spouses, two partners working for the same pro-life nonprofit, I mean, that takes a little bit of courage of saying, okay, we're gonna like step away from. I mean, Aaron, you were in the pastor world, but Holly, corporate world, and we need to sacrifice, a lower income, supporter-driven income. That becomes very scary. I know it was very scary for our family when my husband, who was a public school teacher, when we decided, my schedule was just too crazy. The kids needed to be homeschooled because of CF, cystic fibrosis, and so we made that jump of, okay, Kristan's going to be the only person who brings in a salary, and it's going to be from a nonprofit. That's like scary stuff when you've got like bills to pay.
Yeah.
And so you obviously shows a lot about your character and your all's, mission as a couple to serve women and end abortion.
Well, I would just say whenever the Lord really opened our eyes to this issue and confronted me as a pastor with my apathy and my silence, the only answer was to just push everything in and say we're all in. And so that's why we're doing this. I mean, like Holly said, it really is the honor of our life, to fight for the preborn child, for their moms, for their dads, to educate our community, to challenge biblically on the sanctity of human life, and again, just to walk with these couples.
How do you take your experience? I guess one last question I have for you, Aaron, is your experience as a pastor. How do you approach Christian leaders, ministers, pastors, priests, and challenge them to do more, or to speak out, or how their congregations get more involved? Like, what's your words of wisdom for them that I can just spread all over the internet?
I think going back to just scripture, I mean, scripture is abundantly clear that we must defend the defenseless. We must protect the powerless. We must be a voice for the voiceless. So we have to open our mouth. We have to rescue those being taken away to death. And so I think we find a lot of people in the body of Christ and who care about this issue, but caring is not enough, because caring can still lead to inaction, and that is not okay. And so for me, it's just gently, but and also for me, just being vulnerable about my own experience of being a leader, a church leader, and being asleep to this issue, and just really silently accepting a culture of death. And so when the Lord opened my eyes, He really gave me a boldness to speak out on this, and the Lord is using it. I mean, we speak almost every Sunday. We're in a different church. And the Lord has really given us a passion to see the body of Christ activated and engaged and equipped for this fight.
That's awesome. I guess I lied. One more question. I mean, you keep saying that, the Lord opened your eyes as a pastor. How did your all's eyes become open? I mean, Holly, you were, writing your book, touring, talking about, how to move past tragedy, how to move on, how to deal with that profound loss of your husband, your brother-in-law in your life. Aaron, you're a pastor. Like, how did the Lord move you into this movement?
I mean, for me, when I was approached about taking on the role here, I just thought, well, it sounds like a good thing to do, a right thing to do, a Christian thing to do. And so even though I prayed about it and knew and felt like the Lord was calling me to it, I really didn't get it until I was already in place for several months. And that's when I am smacked in the face with the fact that truly the lost, the least, the hurting are walking through our doors every single day. I'm like, the the stinking mission field is coming through our doors. And what are we going to do about it? And so that's what was really eye-opening for me, that this was so much more than wanting to be a voice for the voiceless, which for sure is at the heart of myself, for sure. But it was just sitting down with these hurting people, lost people, concerned people, scared people, and to have an opportunity to walk with them in their pain. It was just like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever been a part of. And I've grown up in church. My dad was a pastor. I've been in ministry for most of my life, but it's this is the issue that really got a hold of my heart. And I was surprised by it. Even though I went to the pro-life marches growing up with my dad, I really thought I was pro-life. But it wasn't until I was smacked in the face with the reality of just lives being lost every single day right here in my community. And what am I doing about it? And that's where the Lord awakened me. And for Aaron, it was a little different.
For me as a pastor, and also just as a man, I was living this ministry through Holly. She was coming home telling me the stories, and that was just wrecking me. And then we started a men's ministry where we began to sit with the boyfriends and the male influencers, and that just really captured my heart. And there was one day in particular where I had been mentoring in our local school. We have a disciplinary campus here where any kid who gets in trouble or expelled, they kind of put them in one building. And so I had been mentoring in that school for about 10 years. And so one day I was at Hope and I was just volunteering, and one of my students, one of my boys, came in and his girlfriend was pregnant. And here I had the opportunity to sit with him outside of school and to really see this situation through his eyes. And we say all the time that abortion itself is not complicated. It's life or death, but the circumstances around it can be very complicated. And so to see this situation through his eyes, it gave me a whole different lens and just a passion to walk with these young guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I would thank you again for sharing your story, having the courage when you started really, your heart started getting moved in this direction to do this, to step up and to really start to evaluate what is needed now more than ever in a post-Roe America and a post-Roe Texas. And I'm going to be praying for you all's success and hopefully your expansion, where your model is taken across the country, because I think what you guys are on to something that's so desperately needed. And I think every pro-lifer who's tuning in, every member of the Pro-Life Gen tuning in is going to be excited to hear what you guys are doing with Hope Women's Center there in McKinney. Thank you guys for coming on today. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to this conversation. I hope it was as enlightening and inspiring for you as it was for me. Make sure you tell your friends, your family, and just that random person you just met on campus or your community to subscribe to the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast.